All right. There's so much to talk about. Okay. We've been reading and working on Congress. Okay. Congress is a legislative branch contained in Article 1 of the Constitution. Talks about the requirements to be in Congress. Talks about the bicameral nature of Congress. We talk about lawmaking with Congress. We talked about their enumerated powers, those that are listed, those that are implied, and those are all, that's all some good deep stuff, right? Then we talked last time about the committees each person in Congress is placed on, and as a punishment, one can be taken off committees, okay? We've discussed that. Now, that should be up online, and if you've watched the videos online, you would have caught that, and if you've been in class all the time, then you definitely would have caught that. You wouldn't have had to watch the videos. So, that's all fine and well. We're going to transition over to the presidency now, okay? The way the Constitution is structured, it goes from what they believe to be the most powerful, most important branch of government, which is what? Congress, to the next important one, which is the executive branch, the presidency. You notice that the presidency is not number one because ruling should be done by the people. All right? We should talk a little bit about how we expect our congressmen to act. Do we expect them to lead us and we follow, or do we expect us to lead and they follow? They're two different models, okay? Now, with the presidency, we say that's less important than it's not less important, should be less powerful than Congress, right? After all, the president ought not make laws, at least constitutionally. That's not where the power lies. But of course, there is tension between the branches of government. And what happens when Congress does not do what the president wants? And he's going, I want you to make a law on this. And you guys aren't doing what I want. Well, I'll be darned. I will, by presidential fiat, create these things called executive orders. Okay? Whether or not states or individuals are obligated to follow these executive orders is interesting. That's up for debate, okay? Then finally, the third branch of government comes, and that's the courts, the federal courts. All right? And obviously, if we're going from most important to least important, and the courts are named last, which one is the least powerful? Not important, but least powerful. Turns out to be the courts, constitutionally. However, in practicality, in the current system, the current way we currently run things, turns out to be the most powerful. Because if I can't get my way to make laws, I can't get the president to do what I want, well, guess what? We'll take it to court, and then we will get the court to say certain views are unconstitutional, therefore creating some kind of weird law through judicial activism. Such as same-sex marriage. Same-sex marriage did not become a law. Roe versus Wade did not become a law. They determined that you cannot prohibit abortion, that it was unconstitutional, right? And so that the laws that were made on the books that were prohibiting abortion were unconstitutional, therefore by default, you could have them. Same thing with Obergefell v. Hodges, right? That's same-sex marriage. So the court was used to create laws, to legislate from the bench, interestingly enough. So it became actually more powerful than it should have been. And that's why the court has become such a hotbed of contention over the last few since 1974, since Roe versus Wade, because the court has been used to create laws. Well, anyway, as we transition from the Congress to the presidency, one issue that emerges is spending. who spends money? The government does, right? Who raises the funds for money? Well, Congress does. Who writes legislation to raise money? It always originates in the House, okay? Now, the question is, do you want more or less spending by the government? Now, you could say, I could care less how much the government spends, except for one thing. The government is not spending its money. The government is spending your money. Once you realize that it is your money that they are spending, then you may feel differently about it. And you may especially feel differently about it if you disagree with what they are spending it on. For example, I am pro-life. I am a Christian. I do not like my money going to abortions, specifically private abortion industries such as Planned Parenthood. Yet Planned Parenthood gets $500 million, I think, per year for abortions, and other countries have gotten this from America to spend on abortions from my taxpayer, from my money that they have taken from me involuntarily. Okay? Now, do you have some pet peeves? I know you do. If you go through the budget, you'd go, and by the way, I was going through the budget before I got in class. I was looking at, the 2021 budget that was created by President Trump. And then I went back to the 2016 one, which was the last one by Barack Obama. And you can see the different spending priorities that the president and the Congress come together on. Because the president can present a budget, but the president does not determine the budget. The Congress has to pass the budget. Okay? It's a team effort in a sense. There's debate over it. What are some things you want to see your money spent? It is your money. And it's not just your money, it's your children's money. Quickly take out your phone and do a quick search for the United States debt calculator. I want you guys to see how much you owe. And when I say you, there is literally a box on there out of all of that says this is how much each individual owes. I think each individual is currently in debt to the tune of either 180 or something like that to $200,000 of the U.S. That's your portion of the debt. That's how it breaks down. Times 330 million or however many U.S. citizens there are. Because quite frankly, keep in mind, this is about the U.S. citizens, not about those who are living here, who are resident aliens, who are living in America but not citizens. Okay, they're from somewhere else but not citizens. Did you find it? You did. How much, what number do you see? Is it huge? Do you see the debt clock moving? Do you see the movement? Those are dollars going up every second to your debt. You understand that? Is it overwhelming? No, it's not overwhelming? You don't even understand it, do you? I mean, that's not to insult you, but if you do, can I see it on your phone? Because I don't want to pull up mine, because mine's recording. I'm going to use it for the video. That's not what, no, that is not it. No. I want the national debt clock. This is it. Okay, so, let's start it. Is your thing? It's not turning, so. There we go. I knew it. You're so awesome. I was gonna have you turn that on for me. I didn't know if you had it turned off. See this right here? Here's our revenue. Okay, that's our GDP. That's how much we're making. That's our spending. Okay, that's our local debt. Okay. So right there's in the millions, right there's in the billions, there's in the trillions. That's local debt, okay? I want you to go through and see how much you owe, okay? Here we go, U.S. federal deficit. What is a deficit? That's spending more than we have. Here's our deficit actual. Look at that. There's millions, billions, trillions. Okay, there's our spending. Do you get that? Do you know how much a trillion is? What is a trillion? Can you tell me? I'm going to use your phone for just a second here. Is it in there?
Mm-hmm.
Can you see the spending going up?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How much of that is spent on you? How much of that spending? Because you're doing. Who's doing the spending?
We are.
We are?
No, the government.
The government. Are you the government?
We're part of the government.
You're part of the government. You work for the government?
No.
They work for you. Are they spending the money on what you want them to spend it on?
I'm not sure.
You're not sure.
Yeah, I haven't.
That's why it's very important that we pay attention to what the government is spending, look at me, your money on. Do you like money? Whether you like it or not, we got to live with it, right? If you were finding out your purse was being robbed every day, right, by your kids, or by your parents for that matter, who cares? Would you be mad? And what if they were taking that money and spending it on things you don't want them to spend it on? Would you say, stop it? Yes, you would. Did you find it? Is it overwhelming? If you are not overwhelmed, then you do not understand what you just saw. Did you see the same thing that we were all talking about there, Brenda? The big rolling clocks and the boxes? Yeah, okay? How much should we spend on certain things? What is reasonable? We have to spend money on certain things. What are certain things that we have to spend money on?
Education. Security.
Do we have to spend money on education? Why? What would happen if we stopped funding gender studies programs? Now let me tell you something. We'd have a lot less social unrest, I could tell you that. Okay? What if you had, look, you're going to private school. You're not getting subsidized. You are actually paying, you, Leah, are going to school at a private university, meaning you are paying 100% of your education. We're getting a little federal dollars here, but you are not getting subsidized. You go to a state school, you know why it's cheaper? Because there's money coming in through taxes. The states, that's why you have in-state versus out-of-state tuition. Because the residents of the state are getting subsidized by taxpayer dollars. Those who come in from outside the state are not getting paid taxpayer dollars. See, what you don't realize is you get a bill that's part of a bill. The other part's going to at least the state government in that case, okay? You pay that. When you go to private school, that bill's your bill. There's no in-state, no out-state, okay? Yet the interesting thing is you're still paying taxes so that somebody else can go to the state schools. Nobody said, hey, Leigh, you're not going to public school, so you don't have to pay for other people's education. No, you're still paying for their education. So clearly, you are not only showing that we don't need the government to pay for education in that regard, because not only are you paying for your own education, but you're paying for somebody else's on top of that. Okay? What would happen if you stopped paying for everybody else's education? You'd have some more money in your pocket, and you'd still be getting the same education here, wouldn't you? And what about K through 12? Does the government really need to pay for that? I mean, if the government is paying for it, where are they getting the money?
From the taxes.
So really, you're paying for it.
Mhm.
So they're just taking your money and they're paying for it, right? The only difference is they're taking your money and paying for something you're going to use, and then they're going to govern, because that's what governments do, is they govern your education. They say you will learn this, 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 and you will not learn this, this, and this. Can you learn religious morals at a public institution? No, because there's a bunch of groups out there. It's connected to the government. So if you want to get rid of religion, what do? Is you turn everything into the government and make a separation of church and state. If the government runs everything, then the church can't have a say in anything, right? So the more things you put in control of the government, the less thing religion has to do with it. If you want to get rid of religion, education is huge for people who hate religion. Public education is such a big deal. And that's why they fight what are called vouchers. Do you know what a voucher is? It's like a little, you get it's not a check. It's like saying, I have this much money, and it's, quote, a refund from the government of your taxes to take to a private school of your choice. So let's pretend you live in a bad neighborhood where drug dealers have overtaken your school, where you cannot get a good education because the teachers don't care, because the students are such behavioral problems, because they come from broken homes, their families are destroyed, and all you want is for your kid to have a good education, but you live in that neighborhood and your kid is not going to have a fighting chance in that school to come out even reading. So you want to get your kid to a private school, but you can't afford it. So the government says, I'll tell you what, we'll give you a refund of your money to take it to the private school of your choice. And here comes the ACLU to say, no, you cannot do that. Because if you take that government money and you spend it on a private school, most likely you will spend it on a religious school, and that would be a violation of church and state. You must stay in that school. It's a big fight, by the way. It's a big fight over how government spends money. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Where should the government spend money? If you get money out of school, now I'm an educator, okay? You would expect me to go, we need more money in education. I don't know about that. When the government spends money on education, I don't see it as doing too well. When private people spend money on education, they choose. Schools flourish because they compete. They produce better students when they compete. They get rid of bad teachers when they compete. Right? That's why you're here. You're here for, why are you here at a private school? Better than what?
Well, in a public university.
That's correct. That's private. That's privatization of education. What happens if the government comes out and says you are not allowed to have a private education anymore? Socialization, right? Turning things into socialized education, socialized medicine. You lose choices, right? And you lose quality, okay? The government does not create wealth. Private businesses create wealth. They create products, they sell them. Part of your debt clock on there was a GDP. What's a GDP? The gross domestic product, the very things we create and their value, okay? In America. We want that to be higher than our spending. It is not. It is not, okay? We spend more than we make. In any household, that is irresponsible. Would you agree? No banker would say, you've got an empty bank and you want more money and you keep spending more than you make, you're doing a good job. Nobody would do that. But yet, our government does that. What happens when you default on your loans? They cut you off. You're no longer able to borrow anymore. Your credit is shot. The money you print is not worth anything. What does that do for the spending power or the money you have in your bank? Takes the value away, meaning you are broke, even though you had a bunch of greenbacks. Especially when they start turning on the printing press. Okay? The presidency and the Congress have an obligation when it comes to our budget to do what? To actually spend wisely. Now, how do you do that when you've created such a huge bureaucracy that requires all this money? You cannot get the cat back in the bag. Once you've created socialized medicine, how do you take it away from people? Once I've given you something, quote, listen to this, for free, government provided, how do I take it back and say you're no longer getting it? What happens when you start getting free paychecks, universal income? Who's for that? What's a universal income?
Like everybody gets the same amount of money?
No.
No?
People, everybody gets a paycheck that is, if you're not working, you get a paycheck from the government, even if you're not working.
No.
And some people say about $1,000 a month, $1,500 a month, right? To supplement your work. Well, what does that do? Takes away incentive to work. If people are giving you money, why would you work for it? So what happens? People stop working. People stop working, they stop producing. When they stop producing, you may have money in your hand and you go, I'd like a cup of coffee. And so they say, sorry, there's no coffee. Why? Nobody's producing coffee anymore. Because nobody wants to go out and pick coffee for X amount of dollars anymore. Right? So there's coffee shortages. Cups of coffee go way up in money. And you with your $1,500 a month are going, well, this doesn't buy anything. I might as well be broke. Yes, you might as well be broke because you didn't work for it. But on the table right now, people are buying your vote, saying, if you vote for me, I will vote for universal income so that you won't have to work. And it's all going, and they couch it in language like, well, there are poor people out there, and we need to help them. Well, yeah, there are poor people out there, and we do need to help them. We need to help them stand up so that they can stand on their own. Teach them to fish so that they can fish. We don't need to give them a fish for a day, right? Then they're dependent on us for fish. We teach them how to fish. What do? They learn how to fish. Now, there are real lazy people out there, too. They're hustlers, right? And there are real handicapped people out there. So there's a difference. You go, where's the line? Budgets have to do that. But we also have defense. We have national defense, right? But we have other issues. We have homeland security. We have science and technology. We have infrastructure. Because guess what, guys? Some things just can't be privatized. Bridges, interstates, and roads. Are you going to go pay for your own road?
No.
Well, there's this toll road thing kind of going on, right? Where they go, okay, private industries can build roads, and they'll charge you a toll to drive on it. Okay? It doesn't quite work for the interstate. Great thing about toll roads is you don't have to drive on them, right? Unless you have to drive on them, then you can spend it. But again, it's a consumption tax. You are taxed in as much as you use it. Let's talk a little bit about the president, because the presidency does have to propose a budget. And that is a very powerful thing. It's Article 2, talking about the presidency. How many presidents have there been in the history of the United States? 40 what?
46.
46 now. We're on our 46th thing. Is that a lot? Okay, good. Take out your pen and paper. Take out a piece of paper and pen. And I want you to don't look at your phones or anything for this one, and just start writing down as many presidents as you can name. Take a couple minutes, see what you can do. Hey, look, I'm not gonna claim I can name them all, so I'm in no moral, position to judge you on this. I just want you to get a grasp Okay, you know, one, that there are some that are more famous to you than others, and some are just going to fade away into the distance that nobody's gonna know about. Okay, so just take a minute, okay, and then I'll pop a picture up on there. In fact, you know, it's for our video people. Can they see this?
Oh yeah. Well, you can barely see the names.
Yeah, no need to look at the names. Don't cheat. You're looking at it. I see you.
I'm not looking at. I can't even
I
see
know.
them.
I know. I can't see it either. I have my glasses on. I'm like, I see the faces, but I can't name them. One of the ways you could do this is you just start with the president, the current one, and go backwards and see how many you've lived through. That's an interesting one.
Oh.
What, 3? That's one way. And then you start there, and then maybe you go with the then you go, okay, well then maybe after I'm done with that, I'll start from number 1. Everybody knows number 1, right? Abraham Lincoln, and I'm joking. That's a joke. You start with number 1, and then you go, all right, number 1, George Washington. All right, number 2, and then you're stuck. Oh, crud. I know who it is. But let's see if you do. Because then after you get 2, 3, 4, then you're like, oh yeah, they don't seem as consequential till number 16. Number 16 being Abraham Lincoln, of course. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. But we've noticed there are 46 presidents. 46 presidents. That's not a lot if you think about it. When you look at this picture and you go, oh my God, it fits on, like, when I was a kid, and I guarantee they still exist, you go to these restaurants and they bring out the kids menu, and on the kids menu, you know, the top, the little placemat, they have all the presidents on there. You've seen those, maybe? I know they did. Back when I was a little boy, it was not 46, it was 40. I'm 40?
No, you said like 40 presidents? Or maybe
Yeah, I mean, but it was less than that when I was even born. I mean, I was born, Nixon, so Kennedy had been shot, so Lyndon Johnson, I think, came into office, and then that's where I was, I think, if I'm correct. And then there was Nixon, and from Nixon, I could be wrong, could be Johnson.
Nixon was the 37.
Yeah, so who's after Nixon? Was it Johnson?
I'm not sure.
I think this is
No, it was,
Carter?
who?
Carter? Jimmy Carter?
No, Jimmy Carter came after him, yes, in 1976. But when Nixon stepped down, and I'm trying to think of who it was, I could see his face.
Gerald Ford?
Yeah, Gerald Ford, because he tripped off the Air Force One. He's famous for falling as he came down the stairs.
Yeah, because it was like John F. Kennedy.
Lyndon Johnson.
and-
That's right. So it was Kennedy, Johnson, Nixon, Ford, and then Ford had to run for re-election. He wasn't actually elected. He was the vice president, became president. And then there was Carter, Jimmy Carter, and he was a big deal. That was what was called our bicentennial year. That means that was the 200th anniversary of America. And we had this quarter, the 1976 quarter, with this drummer on the back, and we thought that was pretty cool, and people were in coin collecting back then and whatever. Anyway, that was a long time ago. Okay, I was 6 years old. So that's a long time. I think that's 36 or something years ago, something like that. I don't know. We could add it to know. So, oh my God, 46. That was 46 years ago. That Watergate was Nixon. So here's a little bit of trivia, HBU trivia for that matter. The group that had broken into the Watergate Hotel, they broke in because that was the Democratic National Convention's headquarters, and they were looking for things. Nixon was supposed to win in a landslide, which he did, but he was so paranoid. He was so paranoid that he was going to lose. So I guess they concocted this, and they did it, and then they got busted. And when he stepped down, he was going to be impeached. So he he steps down rather than go through that process. The guys there went to jail, and one of the guys became a Christian. His name is Chuck Colson, and he became a very famous Christian and writer having to do with morality and leading a moral public life and worldview. And he worked with a woman who is a professor here named Nancy Pearcey, and they wrote several books together. So Nancy Pearcey still works here, but she was a friend and colleague of Chuck Colson, who went to jail. Okay, there. So anyway, Nixon, then Carter. Carter came into office. He was a Democrat. He had 4 years, and there was this thing, the Iran hostage situation, where I think 300 Americans were held hostage in Iran for over a year. And Reagan came in and he said, he basically said, you like me, I'll bring them, I'll bring these hostages home. They literally, as soon as he got elected, they came home. Iran didn't want to mess with Reagan because Reagan was a hawk. Now Reagan, what I didn't understand at the time, because I was just a little boy, I didn't realize Reagan was an actor before. He was a Western actor. He's a very famous Western actor, and he was the governor of California. Reagan was a Republican. Reagan was like Donald Trump, very unpopular in terms of the Democrats. They hated him, and they hated him with this really strong vitriol. Okay, but he was a 2-term president, and he was the one that facilitated the winning of the Cold War. Now, that's important. Okay, now if you know, I grew up during the Cold War, where we were facing off with the USSR, the Soviet Union, the Soviet Socialist Republic. Keyword socialist. So if you hear how much I hate socialism, you will know why, because we faced off against those guys, and we know how many millions of people they killed, okay? And how many millions they still kill in China, okay? I know, so because of that, you'll hear this dislike for socialism. Okay, you'll hear everybody talking about how good it is now. No, it's never been good, okay? But after Reagan, his vice president became president, George Bush. George Herbert Walker Bush, former head of the CIA. He actually has I think the record. He was shot down over the ocean in World War II. And I think he had the record up to a certain point of being lost at sea for a while until they found him. Okay? I think that was it. He became head of the CIA, later on became president of the United States. He was a 1-term president. He would have been a 2-term president, and there never would have been a Bill Clinton, except for a guy named Ross Perot, a billionaire from Oklahoma, not Oklahoma. Might have been Oklahoma, but he's a billionaire. Ross Perot came in and said, you elect me, and, I'll get us out of this economic mess, right? Well, the problem was he didn't take off votes from the Democrats. He took them off from the Republicans. He split the Republican vote, and thus Bill Clinton became the president. And with Bill Clinton, you get Hillary Clinton, all right? And lots of scandals, Whitewater, all sorts of things going on. There were people who committed suicide, right? That very questionable suicide. Then you have all of Bill Clinton's sexual escapades that ended up coming to the foreground. He actually got impeached over lying to Congress about having an affair with Monica Lewinsky, one of his interns. We're talking a 20-year-old lady where he's having sex with her in the Oval Office. And, he lied to Congress saying, that was his famous line, I didn't have sexual relations with that woman. And later on he's like, okay, I had an inappropriate, this is how they remember, he didn't say I had an affair, he said I had an inappropriate relation. They change how they talk about it. So, look at Cuomo right now, governor of New York, getting kicked out of office for hitting on women. Back then, Bill Clinton did a bunch of other things, and they're going, oh, come on, it's just his personal life. Why are you dealing with that, right? Well, anyway, so Clinton leaves office. After Clinton, who did we get? George W. Bush. George H. Bush's son. And he was a 2-term president. And what happened virtually right as he went into office? Well, first there was this big fight over who won the election. Was it Bill Clinton's Vice President Al Gore, Mr. Climate Change himself, right? Mr. Inconvenient Truth, or who's a billionaire who flies around on jets that he says we shouldn't fly around on, by the way. Okay? It's not good for you to fly on a jet, but it's okay for me to. Okay? You see his house, you can see it from space. It's lit up. He's a billionaire, by the way. All right. So anyway, going from there, then you get George H. Bush, H.W.'s son. And, he's like, everybody, he's kind of he's a Texan, right? And so he's like, this isn't rocket surgery. A lot of people think he's stupid, right? And they make fun of him. But I didn't think he was stupid. He's actually, in my opinion, a very smart man. But he, comes in, what happens? This is 2000, and then all of a sudden 9/11 happens, right? About a year later, less than a year later. All of a sudden 2 planes are flown into our buildings. We're thrown into a war. We're still in Afghanistan to this day. We still have troops over there to this day, okay? You guys grew up as a result of presidential changes. There are whole governmental agencies that cost billions and billions of dollars of your taxpayer dollars. We were just talking about that. As a result of people flying planes into our buildings trying to kill Americans. Okay? You grew up, how many of you ever flown in an airport? None of you. You have. I know you have. You didn't come over here by a car, did you? Did you? Yes? Have you ever flown? I didn't fly till I was 19, till I joined the Marine Corps. Okay? That was my first. Have you ever flown? Okay. Well, one day, it doesn't matter. Once you get there, what you're going to do is you're going to get this long line. You're going to take off your shoes. You're going to take off your belt. I'm going to take off my coat. I'm going to take my computer out of my bag, right? I'm going to throw them all in a bin. I'm going to put them in a bin. They're going to x-ray it. I'm going to go up to the scanner. The scanner is going to go around me. It's going to scan me. If I look funny, which I do, they're going to pat me down, and they're going to say, hey, they're going to ask me a couple questions. The person who drops me off there, which I don't get dropped off, I drive and I park and I pay for it, it's worth it. But back then, now, if somebody drops you off, they drop you off a curb and they get out of there. When I grew up, the way it used to work is people park, they'd walk you into the terminal, they'd hang out with you till you left, they'd wait till your plane was boarded, and they'd hug, they'd cry, they'd pray with you, they'd be there to greet you. That is not allowed anymore.
They will actually be able to walk up to you all the way to the stairs of the plane.
All the way. All the way. They cannot get anywhere near that now. The number of people you have to go through just to get to the plane in security is so different. Why? Well, the president created a new agency in order to combat terrorism. Because people were trying to kill us by use of our vehicles. Okay, and so this was what went on during our presidency. So lots of things go on during the presidency that they have to. I'm going through the presidency, you can see some of the things going on. Well, so George Bush finishes up, and who do we get? Who comes after George Bush? President Barack Obama. Okay. Not a whole lot of wars or anything going on. We didn't go to a big, we dropped some bombs. We did continue some battles. Definitely not the Clintons. So there wasn't a bunch of scandals. There were some scandals. Unfortunately, they did send around his Secretary of State. Who can name his Secretary of State? Clinton. So those scandals seem to follow them, okay? One had to do with Benghazi. Another one had to do with Eric Holder and Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious was a drug. They were selling guns to the cartels to try to see where these cartels were, where the guns were being used, and what ended up happening. this guy named Brian Terry gets shot with one of those weapons, and now all of a sudden the Biden administration, not the Biden administration, the Obama administration is all getting blamed for this guy's death, right? Because they thought they were doing something to try to track. It turned out to get him in the end. Okay, IRS targeting right now of there was a politicization of the different bureaus, so the IRS was being used to target conservative groups, right? And so there are things that went on with the Obamas where they weaponized certain governmental entities. The FBI was used against Trump. He called it wiretapping. They didn't use it, but they were surveilling him illegally. And they believe it was all done at the behest of the Obama administration to help Hillary Clinton win the election. And that investigation is going on today with a guy named Bill Durham. Okay, so well, Obama himself didn't get busted for anything. His administration was doing certain political things. Okay, here's a little other tidbit about President Obama. It has not much to do with him, but once he was a senator, and we'll talk about how this works. When a senator vacates his seat during his term, let's say he gets elected president, which President Obama did, it's the governor's job to put somebody in that position, right? Well, the governor of Illinois, Rod Blagojevich, being the typical Chicago politician that he is, corrupt. Chicago politics is synonymous with corruption. He basically, and I'm just saying he was accused and found guilty of selling President Barack Obama's former Senate seat to the highest bidder, or attempting to do so. And he got charged with corruption, and he went to jail. And he went to jail literally up until just a couple months ago, when President Trump said, all right, 8 years is long enough for this. Because I think he was going to be in there for 15 to 20 or something, really a long time. Okay? And President Trump showed mercy on literally what would have been a political enemy, because he's a Democrat, right? And Trump's a Republican. But he said, that's long enough, and I hear your plea for mercy, and he pardoned him. And that's one of the presidential powers we'll talk about, okay? So that was an interesting thing, a little tidbit. It had to do with President Barack Obama, but he didn't have anything to do with it, okay? Except for he just happened to vacate the seat because he won the presidency, okay? So now we have Donald Trump, who thinks he is the most unpopular president in the history of the United States. I know a lot of you might go, yeah, he's the most unpopular, because those who hate him really are like, God, I hate him so much, right? You know those people? My sister, they call it Trump derangement syndrome, okay? My sister, you say Trump, and she just starts running around, just cussing and hating and spewing venom. And I'm like, wow, you really hate this guy. Would you kill him if you had an opportunity? Yes, he should die. He should die. Why? What did he do? And she starts talking about his vile mouth when he got caught, on the bus saying very vulgar things, right? You remember that? Like, I can tell you what, man, I've heard a lot worse than that. Maybe not out of a president, but I wouldn't say anybody should die because of that, okay? Okay? But he's a liar. He's an exaggerator. It's the hugest crowd ever, No, Obama's was actually bigger. We saw the pictures.
He's a liar. I mean, he was a liar, but it's not like any other politicians never lied.
Oh, no, come on. Let's be honest with ourselves. To be a liar, to be a politician is to be a liar, right? Do you think, I'm going to make this claim. Donald Trump was not hated because of the lies he told. Donald Trump was hated because of the truths he told. He said, I'm going to put conservative judges on the bench, people who interpret the Constitution as it is written, not as they think it should be. I'm going to erect a border wall, okay? And so I'm going to stop the flood of illegal migration into our country and try to stop the illegal flood of drugs and prostitution and human, trafficking into our country. He said stuff like that. He said, I'm going to defund Planned Parenthood, abortion, right? He said, I'm going to deregulate businesses and I'm going to lower taxes. I'm going to lower the corporate income tax. I'm going to get rid of Obamacare. That's the healthcare system Obama set up that has not worked yet. Okay, I've provided somebody with an Obamacare card and they've come back and said, it's worthless. I got a card. I can't get a doctor with it. Nobody will see me because it doesn't pay anything. They just said, give me the money. I had to give them the money. Okay? Did he lie about those things? He absolutely did not lie about those things. He also said he was going to raise in the budget money for the military. He's going to raise the budget for the veterans, okay? He's going to create this thing called a space force. He said those things and people hated him not because he lied about them, but because he did what he said. Because those who are committed to abortion are really committed to abortion. And if you are committed to abortion, and I tell you, I'm going to take away your legal right, not your natural right. God did not give you a right to kill a baby. If I'm going to make it illegal to kill a baby in the womb, just as long as it's in the uterus, it's okay. If I say I'm going to make that illegal, you're going to hate my guts. If you're really committed to that, okay? And they are really committed to that, I can promise you that. And so they hated him because of the truths he told about his policies. And that's the beautiful thing. They said they hated him about his personality. But no. They would have forgiven his personality if only he held the right policy views. But his policy views were not what they held, and they hated him for that. Because I know a lot of people out there that are just as vile, spewing their venom all over the news, and it's overlooked. All these actors, all these stars saying these crazy things, and nobody's going, oh my God, you're horrible. I agree with your policies, but man, you're horrible. They're not doing that. They're going, you're right on, man, and you're justified. They hated him for his policy. So we're all the way up. We go all the way from my presidential lifetime, okay? Started with Nixon, we'll say. Okay? Now we're into Joe Biden. What can we say about him? He's only been in office a few months. Is he a nice guy? As long as you don't disagree with him, he won't call you a dog-faced pony soldier. You remember that one? You didn't hear that one? Somebody disagreed with him and called her. I think it was a woman. He called her a dog-faced pony soldier or something like that. Yeah, so he's got some spunk. We're gonna find out. I disagree with his policies wholeheartedly. He's a Catholic, and yet he's pro-abortion up to the day you could be pregnant. I'm going into labor, and then just go. You know what I want? I want to go have an abortion instead. You could literally be going into labor and still get an abortion under his policies. Okay? So you see how profoundly the difference is between him and Trump. Okay? That's why I would so profoundly disagree with him versus Trump. I may say, well, Joe Biden doesn't cuss but I can point to some creepy things he's done for sure. There's a whole video on creepy Uncle Joe, I can tell you that, of him like rubbing women's shoulders, kissing them and stuff like that. Point being, they're all human, okay? They all have stuff we can blame, but my disagreement with Joe is on policies. Well, I still disagree with him on his, stuff like that. Not into rubbing women's shoulders, okay? So let's read a little bit about the presidency as we just introduced a bunch of them, okay? Do you think the president should have only 2 terms? Or do you believe that the president should have more than that?
2 is enough.
I think 2
2's enough.
Yeah.
What about Congress? They don't have any term limits.
Well, Congress and President, two different people.
Well, of course they're two different people. So but Congress is the more powerful allegedly, right?
It's the more powerful, but like, it's not only one person running it, I mean, it's like a whole group.
But
of people.
okay, I grant that. Okay, so they're a little more dispersed, okay? So now we just got a whole political class that's been there forever. Rather than just one person who's been there forever. El Presidente. Okay, I like your answer. I don't know if I agree with it. I might agree with it. I bet if I was elected, I'd be all like, no, I don't like term limits. I want to be here forever. I might feel that way. Very hard to vote yourself out of a job, right?
Very.
Yeah, all right. How much time we got? 15 minutes. Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution of the United States of America says that the executive power shall be vested in a President of the United States of America. He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years and together with a Vice President chosen for the same term. All right, so we have a Vice President and President. Nowadays, they run together. Back then, loser became Vice President. Now it's different.
Oh, loser? Oh, I wouldn't.
Hey,
I wouldn't do that. If I was a loser.
that right there's an assassination motive, right?
Uh,
The people were joking about Hillary Clinton, you know, being Joe Biden's vice president. They're like, no, we don't want Joe Biden to kill himself. You know? Now here's where here's where a lot of people get confused and don't like this, and I want your opinion. Each state, this has to do with the Electoral College, okay? Each state, and this is how it is established, by the way. It's in the Constitution, so to get rid of it means we'd have to amend the Constitution. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors equal to the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in the Congress. I'll explain that in a second. But no senator or representative person holding office or trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed as an elector. So, there are 435. There are 435 what?
electoral votes.
House members.
I remember.
And then how many are there senators? Senators are there?
200?
Not 200, 100.
100.
Two per state, there are 50 states. Okay? Each state gets the number of electors of House of Representatives. So if this state here has 30, I think it's 36 House members. It's either 36 or 34, you know, I'm on tape, you know, don't know my own state's number of representatives, I agree, I understand. But we get the number of House members plus 2, 1 per each. And according to this being the Constitution, none of those people, none of our elected officials, none of our House members nor senators can be one of those electors, okay? So we could cast that many votes for the President of the United States. New York and California, I think California has something like 56, okay? So that would include the number of House members they have based on their population, plus the 2 senators they have, okay? Idaho, I think Idaho, has 1 House member and 2 senators. How many electoral college members would they have, votes? 3. Not too hard, right? You need 270 to win the presidency. Okay? That's the magic number. You get 270, you win. How do you get 270 votes? Well, it depends. Each state can determine this because but most of the states are winner take all. What does that mean? That means if you get the majority in Texas on the presidential night of election, if you win the majority, that means you win the state, which means you get all of those votes can go into your bucket. Okay, now there are a couple states, Nebraska I think is one of them, where they literally slice up the votes. Okay, depending upon the score. Okay? I don't know if that's a bad idea. I'm sure in those states they're probably like, no, that's a good idea. That way, it's not a winner take all. Because he didn't win all the votes, right?
So
But
is
the,
that-
huh?
So is that what people say whenever they say that like your vote doesn't count? Like, is that what
They
they're referring
think,
to?
yeah, our vote doesn't count because of the electoral system. It actually counts more. Okay? Because now you are competing only for your state. The goal is not to win the election. I mean, you obviously want to win the election as a whole, but your part is to win something much more manageable, the state. Our goal is to win Texas. So I'm a conservative, right? I'm going to vote for people with conservative religious values. Okay? Pro-life, pro-family, pro-traditional marriage. I'm going to vote pro-business. Because, better business means better employees. I'm just selling you on my bias here. Okay? So I'm going to vote that way. Who do you think I'm going to vote for? What platform is that going to be? It's going to, in this case, until the Republicans violate it, which they have, but until they upset us conservatives off so much, we're going to vote with them because that's what they promise us, right? So the Republicans are going to try to vote together. We're going to try to win the great state of Texas. We're going to have the majority so that our views, at least our votes, go towards the Republican candidate's bucket so that they can fill it up with our votes. And at the end of the day, this is what happens. The president will go from New York to California to Ohio to Florida to Texas, right? To Chicago, all these places with the majority, the larger numbers of votes, right? And then they go to swing states, states that it could go either way, but if it goes my way, it has an impact. If it goes their way, it has an impact. I better go there. Hillary Clinton assumed that she was going to win the Rust Belt. All these, kind of eastern, midwestern states that have to do with mining and steel production. And they have unions, and so the unions traditionally vote Democrat, and Hillary Clinton went, I got those. I don't even need to go there. They're mine. Donald Trump went there, and he said, she's going to take your jobs. She's going to take your jobs. She's going to shut you down. She's going to start a war on coal, right? Because what is one of the Democratic platform positions? Global warming. What do they believe causes global warming? Fossil fuel, coal, gas, oil. We're going to shut that down. How did they vote? They voted for Trump. Trump's in office. Guess what? Boom. She blew it. One of the telltale signs is when she did take a question from one, the guy says, you said you're going to put me out of a job. What do you have to say about that? So you're trying to win the states. That's how the Electoral College works. So when you say your vote doesn't count, yes, your vote counts in the state. You're trying to win the state. Why do Californians always vote Democrat? Well, because a lot of Republicans don't vote because they're sure their vote doesn't count. It'd probably be a lot closer if the Republicans in California were not so demoralized. Okay? Closer. I'm not saying they'd win. I'm just saying closer. Okay? Your job is not to say, I'm not going to win, I'm not going to vote. Your job is to vote and see where the chips fall. Okay? Stand up and be counted. Okay? Try to win the state. And what happens if we get rid of the Electoral College, which many people want to do? When Hillary Clinton lost, she wanted to get rid of the Electoral College because she had more votes overall than Donald Trump. Why did she want to get rid of it? Because she thought, well, maybe the majority should just rule. Right. The majority of the people are in LA, Southern California, San Francisco, San Diego, okay? And then you got New York, okay? Let's flip it over for you guys. New York, California. Then in the middle you got Chicago. You got these huge places, all centers of democratic liberal thought, right? Does Texas want to do what New York and California tell us to do? No, the Constitution was created in order to preserve the states' rights. That's why this was created this way. That's why the Senate was created, was so states like Idaho wouldn't be run over by the will of the majority in New York. Because they have their own interests there, and we have our own interests here, and that's why it's broken up. And so that political power is divided in such a way that it protects us as Texans. Now, I know a lot of us love the idea of California. They seem so cool. Okay, cool. I'm glad you say that. I've lived there. It's a nice place. I like oceans. I live in Hawaii too. Okay, I like water. I like mountains. I like scenery. Okay, I like movies. Tried my best to work in the industry. Okay, tried to be cool like one of them. I wasn't. Okay, but I will tell you this. I don't want to be ruled by those people. They're not smarter than we are just because they make movies, just because they live in a pretty place. I don't want to be ruled by New Yorkers. They don't know more than you do. What do they know about Texas? And they ought not be ruled by us. Why should we in Texas rule New York and California? By the way, California and New York are experiencing mass exodus. What do I mean by that? People are leaving there. They're moving their businesses out. They're moving their people out. Why are they doing that? And where are they going?
Jesus.
Texas.
Yes, you are correct, sir. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Why are they coming here?
I don't know, taxes or something like
Why
that.
would they come somewhere? Because it's better than where they're leaving. They could own a home, right? They could run a business. They're not overtaxed, right? Things are cheaper. They're letting you work. They're not shutting you down. Why would we want them ruling us when everybody's coming here? They're also going to Florida. They're not going to Florida?
No, not about, no, not.
Or you're just like, no, they should be coming here.
No, not the one that, well, yeah.
Look, Texas, God bless Texas. I've lived in a lot of places, and here I've hung my hat. And I don't own a hat, but my baseball cap. I don't have one. All right. So we got the Electoral College. Let's talk a little bit about the oath of office. We got 5 minutes. Before he enter on the execution of his office, he shall take the following oath of affirmation. I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of the President of the United States and will do the best will to the best of my ability preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. Okay? The President shall be the Commander-in-Chief of the Army and the Navy of the United States and of the militia of the several states when called into actual service of the United States. He may require the opinion in writing of the principal officer of each of the executive departments upon any subject relating to the duties of their respective offices, and he shall have the power to grant reprieves, pardons, and offenses against the United States except in cases of impeachment. Remember when I told you about Rod Blagojevich, how he pardoned him? That's one of the presidential powers, okay? How old must a president be to be president? 35. So it goes 25, 30, 35, right? Can you be president, sir?
No,
Why not?
I'm not that age.
First, you're not a citizen, but what if you became a citizen?
I didn't become president because I think you have to be born in the United States.
That is correct. You have to be born in the United States, or you at least would have to have been alive when the Constitution was ratified. Nobody. That applies to nobody. Nobody is 240 something years old now, okay? All right? That'd be pretty cool. They should be president if they were. But that doesn't follow. Okay, so Arnold Schwarzenegger, who is a former citizen of Austria, right? Comes to America, becomes a citizen, becomes the governor of what state? California, right? And he says, "Get down!" Right? And you know, what are you? You too? Okay, I'll stop it. Okay.
Thank you.
Anyway, so get in the chopper.
Don't.
Anyway, so A lot of people are like, wouldn't it be cool if he was president? It would be, except for we'd have to amend the Constitution to allow for that because he was not a citizen who was born here. Okay? So there you go. And you also have had to have lived in America. You could be a citizen of America, born here, and still not be the president, able to be the president because you didn't live here for 14 years. You still have to have a time limit of when you lived here. All right? And then when you get there, then you have to sell yourself to the people for them to vote for you so you win the state, so you could get 270 electoral votes so that you could then go into office. Okay? Of course, there's another way to become president. You could be the vice president and have the other guy impeached, and then you just rise, right?
Oh, you can do that? I mean, you can become vice president even if you don't meet those.
No. You'll still have to meet the standards.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, to be eligible, yeah. Any questions before I kick you on out of here?
So what if, okay.
Great. Keep going.
So what if, for example, I don't meet the standards to be a president? Like, can I be a vice president?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Can okay, because I was thinking of this earlier, but can like certain politicians, like if like you're like a conservative, can you have like certain ideas, like
Yes.
not that
Yes.
that seem democratic?
Yes, that's absolutely true. In fact, so there's a big debate in both parties. So Joe Manchin in West Virginia is very, he's a Democrat, but they call him a moderate or a conservative Democrat because he has certain views that don't line up with those views, say, of the, what's going on now with the left, with all the socialism and with all the, Marxist ideas, right? Then there's, in the Republican Party, you have people like Mitt Romney, Ben Sass. These guys we call them rhinos, Republican in name only, because they're Republicans, but they tend to really kind of have views that are in line with the with the Democrats. And so you get those guys that are kind of chameleons, and they make use of the party to get elected, but then they vote a lot more in opposition to those in the majority of the party. So yes, the answer is yes.
Yes, because like I consider myself like a liberal, but like there are certain policies that kind of favor, kind of like abortion. Like I'm anti against it because like
Yeah.
Because like a while I thought to myself like if most Democrats are like opposed to the death penalty, if you can't take the life of a criminal, how can you take the life of
Yeah, so that's a great point. And so here's the thing, though. While there are plenty of people like you in the Democratic Party that go, well, I'm pro-life, I believe that abortion is morally wrong. To be in the leadership in the Democratic Party, you'll get nowhere. You have to be pro-choice. It's part of their platform. They are not going to allow you to be part of their leadership structure. You're not going to be able to vote. You're not going to be you're going to be able to vote as an individual, but you're not going to become a representative, okay? So there you go.
Yeah, because you have to be like
Excellent questions. Excellent. All right, if there's nothing else, I will try to post a test on the chapter 8, I think it was, on Congress, and it'll be brief, amazing, and I will also get you caught up on getting all these videos up and some quizzes on those, get you guys some grades, okay? All right, y'all doing great.